I, 26F, stood by the grand French doors that led to the garden, a glass of champagne in my hand. The bubbles were flat. The party for my 5-year vow renewal was in full swing behind me, a loud, hollow celebration my husband Mark had insisted on. He said we needed to show everyone how strong we were. I thought it was just for show. A woman I had never wanted to see again pushed through the crowd and walked straight towards me. Her name was Jessica. She was beautiful, in a sharp, predatory way, and she was my husband's mistress. She stopped a few feet from me, her eyes filled with a triumphant fire. She was practically vibrating with victory. The noise of the party seemed to fade into a dull hum in the background. It was just the two of us, standing in a bubble of confrontation she had created. "Having a good time?" she asked. Her voice was dripping with false sweetness. I took a slow sip of my flat champagne. I did not offer her a smile. "I'm where I'm supposed to be, Jessica." Her face hardened. The pretense of politeness vanished completely. "Not for long," she hissed. "This pathetic little party is over. Your marriage is over. He is mine now." I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. It was like watching a movie where I already knew the ending. I just looked at her, waiting for her to finish her big speech. I knew it was coming. She had been practicing this moment in her head for months. I could see it in the way she held herself, the way her chin was tilted up in defiance. "Did you hear me?" she demanded, her voice rising. A few people nearby turned to look. "Mark is done with you. He told me everything. He is finally leaving you for me. We are starting our new life together tonight." I remained silent. Her words were just noise. They had no power over me anymore. This was a battle she thought she was winning, but she had no idea she was fighting a ghost. My silence seemed to enrage her more than any argument would have. "He sent me here," she continued, her voice getting louder. "He wanted me to be the one to tell you. He wants you out of this house. He said you have 1 hour to pack a bag and leave. 1 hour, Clara. Then I'm moving in. An hour." It was such a dramatic, cinematic demand. I almost wanted to laugh. She was living out her fantasy of the victorious other woman, the one who gets to banish the sad, pathetic wife. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, but it was laced with venom. "He doesn't love you. He never did. He was just stuck with you. He told me he feels free now. He's waiting for me. So you need to go." I looked past her, at the faces in the crowd. I saw Mark's mother, Eleanor, watching us with a smug little smile on her face. She had always despised me. She saw me as someone who was not good enough for her perfect son. It was clear she was in on this. She was enjoying the show. I finally met Jessica's gaze again. I allowed a small, genuine smile to touch my lips. It was not a happy smile. It was a smile of pity. It was a smile that held a universe of secrets she couldn't even begin to comprehend. Her eyes widened in confusion. This was not the reaction she had expected. She was waiting for tears, for screaming, for begging. My smile completely threw her off her script. "What are you smiling about?" she snapped. "There is nothing funny about this. Your life is falling apart. Is it?" I asked softly. And then I did something she never saw coming. I turned my back on her. I walked away from the French doors, leaving her standing there sputtering in indignation. I walked back into the heart of the party, my head held high. I could feel her eyes burning into my back, but I didn't care. I just smiled and walked away. I had a plan, and her 1-hour deadline was a crucial part of it. The real main event, the asset reading, was scheduled to happen right after her little timer ran out. She thought she was giving me an ultimatum. In reality, she was just starting the countdown to her own destruction. My marriage to Mark had been a slow-motion car crash for the past 2 years. The first 3 years were a blur of what I thought was happiness. We were young, we had dreams. He was charming and ambitious, working his way up in his family's lucrative import and export business. I was a graphic designer, just starting my own freelance career. We bought a beautiful house, the one we were standing in now, and filled it with promises. But something shifted after his father retired and handed the company's reins over to Mark and his older brother, David. Mark became obsessed with status, with appearances. Our life was no longer about our shared happiness. It was about projecting an image of success. He insisted on expensive cars we couldn't quite afford and lavish vacations that were more for social media than for our own enjoyment. He grew distant, critical. My opinions no longer mattered. My work was a cute little hobby. Our finances, which we had once managed together, became his exclusive domain. He told me it was easier for him to handle everything through the business accounts. I was a fool for agreeing. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that the man I loved was still in there somewhere, buried under all that pressure and ambition. His mother, Eleanor, only made things worse. From the day Mark introduced us, she had treated me with a thinly veiled disdain. She would make passive-aggressive comments about my family, my career, my clothes. She constantly reminded me how lucky I was that her son had chosen me. When Mark started to change, she encouraged it. She told him he needed a wife who was more supportive of his lifestyle, not one who questioned his decisions. In her eyes, I was an anchor holding him back from his true potential. David, his brother, was different. He was quiet, observant, and always treated me with kindness. He seemed to see his brother's flaws, but family loyalty kept him from ever saying anything directly. The idea for the vow renewal came out of nowhere. Mark announced it one evening, a few months ago. He said it would be a grand affair, a way to celebrate 5 years and show the world our commitment was stronger than ever. I was hesitant. It felt performative, a desperate attempt to paper over the cracks that were turning into chasms. But when I tried to protest, he accused me of being ungrateful and negative. He said I was trying to embarrass him. So I went along with it, just as I had gone along with so many other things. I picked out a dress. I helped with the guest list. I smiled and pretended this was the happiest time of my life. I first became aware of Jessica about 6 months ago. It started with the classic signs. Late nights at the office. Unexplained credit card charges. A sudden, obsessive privacy with his phone. He would take calls in another room, his voice a low murmur. When I confronted him, he laughed it off. He told me I was being paranoid and insecure. He gaslighted me so effectively that I started to believe him. I started to think that maybe the problem was me. But the doubt never fully went away. It sat in the pit of my stomach, a cold, hard knot of certainty. I didn't have proof, not yet. But I knew. I knew there was someone else. And the more he lied, the more determined I became to uncover the truth, not to save my marriage, but to save myself. Walking back into the party, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. The game had been rigged against me for so long. But now I was the one holding all the cards. I just had to play them in the right order. The catalyst for all of this, the event that turned my life upside down and gave me this chilling sense of purpose, happened 2 weeks ago.
It was a Tuesday.
Mark was supposed to be on a business trip to Singapore. He had been gone for 3 days. He had called the night before, his voice sounding strained. He said the deal was complicated, and he might be there longer than expected. I remember feeling a pang of suspicion. His voice was off. There was something he wasn't telling me. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a man with a calm, professional voice. He introduced himself as Mr. Harrison, an attorney. He said he was Mark's personal lawyer. I had never heard of him. Mark always used the family firm for everything. "I am very sorry to have to tell you this, Mrs. Collins," the man said, his voice gentle but firm. "There's been an accident. Your husband, Mark, has passed away." The world tilted on its axis. I remember sinking onto the floor of my kitchen, the phone pressed hard against my ear. It didn't feel real. It was like a line from a bad movie. I asked him what happened. He was vague.
A car accident overseas.
He said the details were still coming in. He told me not to speak to anyone about it just yet. He said there were complications. He asked if we could meet the next day. He said it was a matter of utmost urgency regarding Mark's estate. I agreed, my mind a complete blank. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, wandering through the empty house. I cried, but my tears felt hollow. I was grieving for the man I had married, not the man he had become. The two were so different it felt like mourning two separate people. The next day, I sat in Mr. Harrison's polished, impersonal office. He was an older man with kind eyes but a serious demeanor. He handed me a thick envelope. It was Mark's last will and testament, updated just 1 month prior. Mark was a very specific man, Mr. Harrison said carefully. His final instructions are quite detailed. I must advise you to follow them to the letter. Your inheritance is contingent upon it. I opened the will. The first part was standard. As his wife, I was named the sole beneficiary of his assets, the house, his shares in the company, his personal savings. But then came the conditions. My blood ran cold as I read them. The first condition was that his death was to be kept a secret from everyone, including his own family, for 2 weeks. The second condition was that the 5-year vow renewal party was to proceed as planned on the scheduled date. It was not to be a memorial. It was to be a celebration. All the invitations had already been sent. I was to act as the happy, devoted wife and host. The third condition was a specific addition to the guest list. A woman named Jessica Miller. My heart stopped. So she had a name. The will included her address and phone number. I was instructed to ensure she received her invitation and attended. The final condition was the most bizarre. The will stipulated that a formal reading of the assets would take place at my home, exactly 1 hour after the party was scheduled to end. And everyone, including Jessica and Mark's mother, Eleanor, was to be present for it. I looked up at Mr. Harrison, my mind reeling. What is this? Is this some kind of sick joke? I assure you it is not, he said gravely. Mark was very clear about his intentions. He wanted to stage one final performance. He stipulated that you were to allow events to unfold naturally during the party. You are not to reveal his passing until I arrive for the reading. A performance. That was the perfect word for it. Mark, the master of appearances, had orchestrated a final, cruel piece of theater from beyond the grave. He was setting me up. He was setting Jessica up. He was pitting us against each other in some twisted game for his own posthumous amusement. And I was supposed to be the lead actress, the grieving widow pretending to be a happy wife. For a moment, I wanted to tear the will to pieces. I wanted to scream and refuse. But Mr. Harrison's words echoed in my head. Your inheritance is contingent upon it. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the house, my home. It was about the company's shares. The only thing that could protect me from the debts Mark had surely accumulated. If I walked away, I would have nothing. Mark had made sure of that. He had backed me into a corner. A cold, hard anger started to replace the shock and grief. It was a clarifying anger. Fine. If Mark wanted a performance, I would give him one. But I would not be his victim. I would be the director. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing for my role. I played the part of the busy wife, finalizing details for the big party. I called caterers, florists, and musicians, my voice bright and cheerful. Inside, I was a detective, piecing together the last months of my husband's life. My investigation started with the name in the will, Jessica Miller. A quick search online brought up her social media profiles. They were filled with pictures of a glamorous life. Trips, expensive dinners, designer clothes. I scrolled back through months of posts, a knot tightening in my stomach. I found a picture of her in Bali from 3 months ago. She was wearing a distinctive necklace, a small gold compass. I froze. Mark had given me the exact same necklace on our first anniversary. He had told me it was one of a kind. The lies were a tangled web, and I was just beginning to pull at the threads. I went to our bank and requested statements for all of our joint accounts and for Mark's personal credit cards, which I was still authorized to access. The teller gave me a sympathetic look. I had told her I was just trying to get our finances organized for the new year. That evening, I spread the statements across the dining room table. It was worse than I could have imagined. There were dozens of charges for hotels I had never stayed in, restaurants I had never been to, and jewelry from stores Mark never took me to. And then I saw the transfers. Large sums of money moved from Mark's business account to a personal account I didn't recognize. Tens of thousands of dollars over the past 6 months. The final transfer for $50,000 was made just 4 days before his business trip. I needed to know whose account it was. The next day, I called my best friend, Sarah. She works in corporate compliance for a large bank.
I told her everything.
The secret death, the bizarre will, the financial mess. She was horrified. "Clara, this is insane," she said, her voice a mixture of anger and concern. "He was setting you up to be humiliated. What kind of monster does that?" "The kind I was married to, apparently," I replied, my voice flat. "Sarah, I need a favor. I have an account number. I need to know who it belongs to. Can you do that without getting into trouble?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "It's risky," she said finally. "But for you?"
Yes.
"Send me the number. I'll see what I can find." An hour later, she called back. "I got it," she said, her voice tight. "The account belongs to Jessica Miller."
Of course it did.
The $50,000 was her parting gift. Or maybe it was a down payment on their new life together. The life he was going to start after publicly destroying me at our vow renewal party. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. He wasn't just leaving me.
He wanted to ruin me.
He wanted to leave me with nothing but public shame and a mountain of debt he had created. I found more inconsistencies in his stories. I remembered him telling me about a conference in Chicago 2 months ago. He had been gone for 4 days. But I found a credit card charge from a spa in Napa Valley during that same period. A couple's massage. I felt sick. How many other lies were there? How much of our life together had been a complete fabrication? I called his brother, David, under the pretense of asking about the seating chart for the party. I kept my voice light, casual.
David,
Quick question for you. I started. Mark mentioned a big new client he was trying to land in Singapore. Do you know who he was meeting with? I wanted to send a gift basket or something. There was a moment of silence.
Singapore?
David repeated, sounding confused. "Clara, Mark wasn't in Singapore. He was supposed to be in Germany, finalizing the logistics for that new shipping route. I spoke to our partners there yesterday. They said he never showed up for the meeting. We've been trying to reach him." My blood ran cold. Another lie. He wasn't in Singapore. He wasn't in Germany. Where had he been? And who was he with when he died? The story from the lawyer about a car accident suddenly felt thin. Mr. Harrison had been vague on the details, and I realized now it was probably intentional. Mark had covered his tracks so well, even in death. "Oh," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "That's strange. He must have gotten his wires crossed." "Thanks, David." I hung up the phone, my heart pounding. This was deeper and darker than I thought. He wasn't just a cheat and a liar. He was running from something. The $50,000, the fake business trip. It all pointed to one thing. He was planning to disappear. And he was going to leave me to face the music. The Vow Renewal party wasn't just about humiliating me. It was his grand exit. He would publicly dump me, paint me as the crazy, jealous wife, and then vanish with his mistress and a pile of stolen money, leaving me to deal with his angry business partners and his devastated family. His death had been the one unplanned event in his meticulous, cruel script. The deeper I dug, the more I understood the true extent of his betrayal. My grief had long since evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He had intended to destroy my life for his own convenience. He had planned to leave me destitute and humiliated while he started over with his new love. The will, with its bizarre and cruel conditions, was his final act of control. He thought he was writing the ending, even from the grave. He thought he could script my pain. I logged into his personal laptop, which he had foolishly left behind. His password was our original wedding date. The irony was bitter. I went straight to his email. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There was a folder titled New Beginnings. Inside were hundreds of emails between him and Jessica. I read them for hours, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. They mocked me openly, calling me his sad little ball and chain. They had planned every detail of my public humiliation. Mark had written a speech he planned to give at the party, a speech full of lies about how I had become cold and distant, how I didn't support his dreams. He was going to paint himself as the victim, a man who had no choice but to seek comfort elsewhere. Jessica's emails were even worse. She was gleeful, triumphant. "I can't wait to see the look on her face," she wrote in one. "She deserves it. She's had you for 5 years. It's my turn now." But then I found something else. Something that changed the entire game. Buried in the email chain was a discussion about a life insurance policy. A $2 million policy. Mark had taken it out 6 months ago, listing Jessica as the sole beneficiary. "It's all set, my love," he wrote. "If anything ever happens to me, you'll be taken care of. $2 million, all for you." The perfect fresh start. But there was an attachment. A scanned copy of the policy document. I opened it and read the fine print. The payout was conditional. The beneficiary had to be his devoted and exclusive partner at the time of death. My heart started to beat faster. Exclusive. I kept digging. I went back to his social media, cross-referencing dates and locations from the credit card statements. The spa in Napa. A weekend trip to Miami, he had claimed, was a solo fishing trip. I searched for women who had tagged the same high-end hotels on the same dates. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. And then I found it. A woman's public profile. A picture of her and a man by a pool in Miami. The man's face was turned away, but I recognized the watch on his wrist. It was a limited edition model I had bought him for his 30th birthday. The woman's caption read, "Best weekend with my secret man." The date matched his fishing trip perfectly. I spent the next 2 days falling down a rabbit hole. I found 2 other women. 2 other secret affairs he was juggling alongside his marriage and his relationship with Jessica. He hadn't just been cheating on me. He had been cheating on his mistress. The man was a walking Ponzi scheme of relationships. Jessica thought she was the woman who had won him. She had no idea she was just one of several. The $2 million life insurance policy was a carrot he had dangled, but the exclusive partner clause was the poison pill. He had probably promised the same thing to the other women. It was a brilliant, sociopathic move. He had made them all believe they were his future, ensuring their silence and complicity. But he had designed it so that none of them could ever cash in. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when I accessed his work emails. He had a separate hidden folder there too. This one was labeled contingency. It was full of documents related to the family business. Spreadsheets, offshore account numbers, and wire transfer confirmations. He had been systematically embezzling money from his own family's company for over a year. He was siphoning funds into a secret account in the Cayman Islands. The amount was staggering. Over $5 million. The $50,000 he gave Jessica was nothing. It was pocket change. The money he had been stealing wasn't just to fund his lavish lifestyle with his mistresses. It was his escape fund. The fake trip to Singapore, the real destination of Germany he never reached, it was all a smokescreen. He was planning to flee the country, leaving the company on the brink of collapse and his brother, David, to take the fall. He would leave me with public humiliation and his family with financial ruin. His sudden death in a car accident, the details of which were still suspiciously murky, was the only thing that had stopped him. The weight of it all was crushing. This man I had shared a bed with, built a life with, was a monster. A charming, handsome monster who had fooled everyone. But as I sat there, surrounded by the evidence of his crimes, I didn't feel broken. I felt a surge of adrenaline. A fierce, protective instinct rose up in me. He had tried to destroy me. He had tried to destroy his family. He wasn't going to get away with it. Not even in death. I made copies of everything. The emails, the bank statements, the insurance policy, the embezzlement records. I put them all in a secure digital folder and also printed hard copies, which I stored in a safe deposit box. This was my leverage. This was my ammunition. The Vow Renewal party was no longer a symbol of my humiliation. It was a stage. Mark had built it, but I was going to write the final act. I was going to follow his twisted instructions to the letter. I would play the happy wife. I would welcome his mistress into my home. I would let her have her moment of triumph. And then, when the time was right, I would bring the whole rotten structure crashing down. The asset reading was not going to be about what he left behind. It was going to be about what he had taken. And I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth. My decision was made. I spent the next week in a state of heightened awareness. Every action was deliberate. Every word was chosen with care. I had a long, emotional phone call with Sarah, my confidant. I didn't give her every single dark detail of the embezzlement, not yet. It felt too dangerous to say out loud. But I told her about the other women and the insurance policy. "Oh, Clara," she breathed into the phone. "He was even worse than we thought. He was playing everyone. He thought he was," I said, my voice steely. "He thought he was the smartest man in the room. He never considered that someone might be smarter." "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice filled with a mix of awe and worry. "I'm going to finish the story he started," I replied. "But it's going to have a very different ending." Her support was a rock. Knowing I had one person in the world who knew at least part of the truth kept me sane. It stopped me from feeling like I was the crazy one, lost in a world of lies. My next conversation was with David, Mark's brother. It was more strategic. I needed to gauge his state of mind and plant a seed of doubt without revealing my entire hand. I called him again, 2 days before the party. "David, I'm sorry to bother you again," I began, pitching my voice to sound worried and a little lost. "I've been going through some of Mark's papers, trying to get things in order, and I'm a little confused about some of the company finances." "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone immediately shifting to one of concern. David was always the responsible one. "It's probably nothing," I said, feigning uncertainty. "It's just, there are some large international transfers that I don't understand. Mark mentioned something about a new supplier, but the amounts seem very high. I'm worried he was in over his head." I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. "Clara, I've been worried too. Things haven't been adding up for a while. Mark was being very secretive about the new expansion projects. He locked me out of the main accounts a few months ago. He said he was restructuring and would bring me up to speed later." Bingo! Mark had isolated him, preparing to frame him for the financial collapse. "He locked you out?" I asked, injecting a note of surprise into my voice. "That doesn't seem right. You're partners." "I know," David said, his voice heavy with frustration. "I tried to talk to him about it, but he just brushed me off. He said I needed to trust him. Our mother, of course, took his side. She said I was being jealous of his success. This was perfect. David was already suspicious. He was already feeling betrayed. He would be my ally when the time came. He just needed a final push." "Well, I have some paperwork here," I said carefully. "Maybe you could look at it after the party? I'd feel much better if you did. I just want to make sure everything is okay." "Of course, Clara," he said immediately. "Whatever you need. We'll sort it out." I hung up, feeling a small sense of victory. The pieces were moving into place. David was primed. Sarah was my backup. The evidence was secure. All that was left was the performance itself. Now, back in the present, walking through the chattering crowd, I saw Mark's mother, Eleanor, holding court by the fireplace. She was telling a story, her hands gesturing wildly, a wide, self-satisfied smile on her face. She caught my eye and her smile tightened. She excused herself from her group and glided over to me. "Clara, dear," she said, her voice like honey laced with arsenic. "Are you all right? You look a little pale." "I'm perfectly fine, Eleanor," I replied, keeping my expression neutral. "Good, good," she said, patting my arm in a gesture that was meant to look comforting but felt like a claim of ownership. "It's such a wonderful party. Mark would be so proud. He has such a vision for things, doesn't he?" Her words were chosen to sting. She was reminding me that this was all Mark's doing, that I was just a supporting character in his life. "He certainly does," I agreed, my voice even. "He planned every last detail of this evening." She beamed, taking my agreement as a sign of my submission. "He's always been like that. So decisive. He knows what he wants, and he goes after it. It's why he's so successful. Some people find that intimidating, I suppose. People who are less driven. It was a direct jab at me and my freelance career, which she had always dismissed. I refused to take the bait. "I have a feeling tonight will be full of surprises," I said, letting a cryptic smile play on my lips. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. She wasn't used to me being anything but deferential or defensive. My newfound calm was unsettling to her. "What does that mean?" she asked, her tone sharpening. "It just means it's a special night," I said smoothly, turning to greet another guest who had just approached. "So many people here to celebrate our love." I left her standing there, a flicker of uncertainty on her face. It was a small victory, but it felt good. I had spent 5 years letting her walk all over me, letting her make me feel small. That was over. The hour Jessica had given me was ticking away. I could feel the tension in the room building, even if no one else knew why. Jessica was flitting from group to group, her laughter a little too loud, her smiles a little too bright. She was performing just like me. She was playing the role of the soon-to-be-revealed new love, soaking in what she believed was the last few moments of her secret life. She kept shooting me glances from across the room, glances filled with pity and contempt. She thought I was oblivious, wandering through my own party, like a ghost. She had no idea how right she was. With about 15 minutes left on her ridiculous timer, I saw Jessica approach Eleanor. They stood together near the massive floral arrangement in the center of the hall. Their heads were close together, whispering. Eleanor was nodding, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. She placed a hand on Jessica's arm, a gesture of solidarity. They were allies. The old queen and the new one, united in their mission to dispose of me. The sight of them together solidified any lingering doubts I might have had. This wasn't just about Mark's cruelty. It was a betrayal orchestrated by the three of them. I needed to make one last call. I slipped out of the main room and into Mark's home office. I closed the door behind me, the sound of the party instantly muffled. The room was just as he had left it. His leather chair, his expensive pen set, the faint scent of his cologne still hanging in the air. For a moment, a wave of genuine sadness washed over me. Not for the man who had lied and stolen, but for the man I thought he was, the man I had loved. That man was well and truly gone. I pushed the feeling aside and pulled out my phone. I dialed the number for Mr. Harrison, the lawyer. He answered on the first ring. "Mrs. Collins," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Is everything proceeding as planned?" "Yes," I said, my voice low. "The party is in full swing. Our special guest is here and has just given me my 1-hour notice to vacate the premises." I heard a faint sigh on the other end of the line. "I see. And how are you holding up?" "I'm better than I expected," I admitted. "The anger is a powerful fuel." "Indeed," he said. "I am just a few minutes away. I will arrive precisely at 9 o'clock, as per the instructions. The reading will commence immediately." "Good," I said. "There is one more thing, Mr. Harrison. My investigation. It uncovered more than just infidelity. It's bad. It involves the company." "I suspected as much," he replied, his voice not changing in tone. "Mark's final arrangements were not those of a man with a clear conscience. Bring whatever documentation you have. We will address it all." "I will," I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. He was on my side. He was not just an executor of a will. He was an officer of the court, and he would see that justice was served. "I will see you shortly, Mrs. Collins," he said. "See you shortly, Mr. Harrison," I replied and ended the call. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the final act. I walked out of the office and back towards the main room. As I entered, I saw Jessica marching towards me, a furious expression on her face. David was standing nearby, looking concerned. Eleanor was a few steps behind Jessica, like a general watching her soldier go into battle. The party music seemed to stutter and fade as all eyes turned to us. Her hour was up. It was time. "Your time is up," Jessica snarled, her voice loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. The chatter in the room died down completely. We were the center of attention, just as Mark had always wanted to be. "I told you to be out of this house an hour ago," she continued, her hands on her hips. Why are you still here? I didn't answer. I just looked at her, my expression calm, almost serene. My lack of reaction was driving her insane. Are you deaf? She shouted.
Get out.
This is my house now. Mark is waiting for me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw David take a step forward, a look of confusion and alarm on his face. Jessica, what is going on? What are you talking about? Eleanor stepped up beside Jessica, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. David, stay out of this, she said sharply. This is between Clara and Jessica. It's time for some truths to be told. What truths, Mother? David demanded, his voice rising. What is happening? Jessica ignored him, her eyes locked on me. He's mine, she screamed, her face contorted with rage and a strange kind of desperation. He loves me. He chose me. He's done with this pathetic excuse for a marriage. This is it. This is the moment she's been dreaming of. The public declaration. The final victory. I can feel the pity and shock from the other guests. They're looking at me, the scorned wife, and her, the triumphant mistress. Where is he, Jessica? I ask, my voice quiet but carrying in the silent room. You said he's waiting for you. Where is Mark right now? The question hangs in the air. It's a simple question, but it's one she can't answer. A flicker of panic crosses her face. He's on his way, she stammers, losing a bit of her bravado. He's coming to get me. He wanted me to handle you first. Is that what he told you? I press, taking a small step closer. I am no longer on the defensive. The power dynamic is shifting.
Yes.
He's going to walk in here any minute and tell everyone himself, she insists, though her voice wavers. Eleanor, sensing Jessica's faltering resolve, steps in. Clara, stop this. This is cruel. Just accept that it's over and leave with some dignity. Dignity. I repeat, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. You want to talk about dignity? After you conspired with this woman to humiliate me in my own home. Eleanor flinches, her face paling. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do, I say, my voice turning to ice. Just then, the grand front door swings open. A hush falls over the room. Everyone turns, expecting to see Mark making his dramatic entrance. Jessica's face lights up with a relieved, triumphant smile. But it's not Mark. It's Mr. Harrison, the lawyer, standing in the doorway, a leather briefcase in his hand. He looks grave and authoritative. Jessica's smile vanishes. Who are you? She demands. Mr. Harrison walks slowly into the center of the room, his eyes scanning the crowd before they land on me. He gives me a slight, almost imperceptible nod. My name is Charles Harrison, he announces, his voice resonating with authority. I was Mark Collins's personal attorney. I am here to conduct a reading of his last will and testament. The silence in the room is absolute, broken only by a few confused gasps. Jessica stares at him, her mouth hanging open. Eleanor looks like she's seen a ghost. His will. David stammers, looking from Mr. Harrison to me. What are you talking about? Mark isn't. Isn't what, David? I ask softly. Jessica finally finds her voice. This is a joke. It's a trick. Clara is trying to trick us, she shrieks, pointing a trembling finger at me. Mark is fine. He's coming. Mr. Harrison looks at Jessica with an expression of deep pity. I'm afraid not, Miss Miller, he says, his voice gentle but firm. He opens his briefcase and pulls out a single document. Mark Collins passed away 2 weeks ago in a car accident. I have the official death certificate right here. He holds it up. The words are too far away to read, but the official seal is unmistakable. A collective gasp ripples through the room. Eleanor sways on her feet, and David rushes to steady her, his own face a mask of shock and disbelief. Jessica just stands there, frozen. Her face has gone completely white. No, she whispers. No. It's a lie. It's a forgery. He's not dead. He can't be. She turns to me, her eyes wild with panic and fury. You did this. This is your sick game. No, Jessica, I say, my voice devoid of all emotion. This was his game. We were all just his pawns. This party, your invitation, your little 1-hour ultimatum. It was all in his instructions. Mr. Harrison clears his throat, drawing everyone's attention back to him. If everyone could please be seated, he says, gesturing towards the living room sofas and chairs. The will is very specific. The reading must take place now, with all designated parties present. No one moves for a moment. They are all stunned into paralysis. Then, slowly, like people in a trance, they begin to drift towards the living room. David helps his mother, who is now sobbing quietly, onto a sofa. Other guests, the ones not directly involved, begin to whisper amongst themselves and discreetly make for the exit. They know this is a private affair now. Jessica remains rooted to the spot, shaking her head in denial. I'm not going anywhere. This isn't real. You need to be here for the reading, Miss Miller, Mr. Harrison says firmly. You are mentioned specifically in the will. The mention of her name seems to break through her shock. Her eyes flicker with a new emotion.
Greed.
If Mark is really gone, then what did he leave her? The $50,000 was just the start, she must be thinking. She straightens up, a new, calculating look on her face. She follows the others into the living room and sits on the edge of an armchair, perched like a vulture ready to claim her prize. I sit on the sofa opposite her, next to David and a still weeping Eleanor. I feel a strange sense of detachment, as if I'm watching this all from a great distance. The performance is almost over. Mr. Harrison stands before the fireplace, the will in his hand. He puts on a pair of reading glasses and begins. This is the last will and testament of Mark Richard Collins, he starts, his voice formal and clear. I, Mark Collins, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my final wishes. He goes through the standard legal language, and then he gets to the main bequests. To my beloved wife, Clara Collins, he reads, I leave the entirety of my estate. This includes our primary residence, all personal property contained within, all savings and investment account held in my name, and my full 50% share of Collins imports. Eleanor lets out a choked sob. Jessica's eyes narrow into slits. However, Mr. Harrison continues, and the room falls even more silent. This bequest is contingent upon my wife following a set of specific instructions laid out in a separate addendum. These instructions include keeping my passing a secret for a period of 2 weeks, proceeding with our planned Vow Renewal celebration, and ensuring the attendance of certain guests, namely, one Jessica Miller. He pauses and looks at me. Mrs. Collins, have you complied with all of these instructions? I have, I say, my voice steady. Then the estate belongs to you, he confirms. Jessica makes a strangled noise in the back of her throat. What about me, she demands. He promised me. He wouldn't leave me with nothing. Mr. Harrison turns a page in the will. There is a section concerning you, Miss Miller, he says. It reads, to Jessica Miller, for her companionship, I have arranged for a life insurance policy in the amount of $2 million to be paid out upon my death. Jessica's entire demeanor changes. A huge, greedy smile spreads across her face. $2 million. She has won. She looks at me with pure, unadulterated triumph. She doesn't even bother to hide it. However, Mr. Harrison says, and the word hangs in the air like a guillotine. Jessica's smile falters. The policy payout, the lawyer continues, reading directly from the document, is conditional. It is to be paid only to my devoted and exclusive partner at the time of my death. The insurance company will require proof of this exclusivity before releasing the funds. Jessica's face falls. Exclusive? What does that mean? We were exclusive. He was leaving his wife for me. Is that so, Miss Miller? I ask, my voice dangerously quiet. I stand up and walk over to the coffee table, where I had placed a large manila envelope before the party started. I open it and pull out a stack of papers. Because I'm not sure Mark agreed with that definition of exclusive, I say, my voice ringing with newfound power. I hold up the first document. It's a printout of the Miami hotel photo. This is a picture of Mark in Miami, 2 months ago. He told me he was on a fishing trip. He told you, according to his emails, that he was at a tech conference in Austin. But he was actually with this woman. I tossed the photo onto the coffee table in front of Jessica. Her eyes widen in shock. And this, I continue, holding up another set of papers, is a printout of a hotel booking and spa receipt from Napa Valley. A couple's massage for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The date matches the week he told you he was visiting his sick aunt in Boston. I dropped those papers on top of the first. And then there's the matter of the woman from his London office. I say, my voice relentless. They had a regular arrangement. I have emails. Very descriptive emails. I add another stack of papers to the pile. Jessica is staring at the evidence, her face a mess of confusion, betrayal, and dawning horror. She is speechless. He was not your devoted and exclusive partner, Jessica. I state, my voice cold and final. He wasn't even my devoted and exclusive partner. He was devoted only to himself. That $2 million? It was a lie. A game. He set it up so you could never collect. He was playing you just like he was playing everyone else. Jessica lets out a sound that is half sob, half scream. She lunges for the papers, tearing at them as if destroying the evidence will change the truth.
No.
He loved me. He wouldn't do that. He did. I say simply. I turn to Mr. Harrison. I have digital copies of everything, including correspondence with these other women. I will be happy to forward them to the insurance company's fraud department. Mr. Harrison nods gravely. That will be sufficient to block the claim indefinitely. Jessica collapses back into her chair, all the fight gone out of her. She is broken. She has lost everything. The man, the future, the money. It was all a fantasy. But I am not finished. There is one last act. I turn to David, who has been watching this all unfold with a look of growing dread. His mother, Eleanor, is staring into space, her face pale and slack. David, I say, my voice softening slightly. There's more. I'm so sorry. I pull the final set of documents from the envelope. The spreadsheets. The offshore account details. The wire transfer confirmations. Mark wasn't just cheating on me or on Jessica. I say, my voice heavy. He was cheating on you. He was cheating on the whole family. I hand the thick stack of papers to David. He's been embezzling from the company for over a year. He stole over $5 million. He was planning to flee the country and leave you to deal with the fallout. The business would have been bankrupt within months. He was going to let you take the fall for it all. David takes the papers, his hands trembling. He flips through the pages, his face growing paler with each one. He sees the account numbers, the transfer records, the undeniable proof of his brother's ultimate betrayal. No, he whispers, looking up at me, his eyes filled with a terrible, dawning understanding. Not Mark. Yes, David. Mark. I say gently. The $50,000 he transferred to Jessica? That was stolen company money. All the trips, the gifts for all his other women. It was all funded with money he stole from you. From your father's legacy. I look over at Jessica, whose head has snapped up at the mention of her money. Which means, I continue, my eyes locking on hers, that the $50,000 in your bank account is not a gift. It is stolen property. And the company will be pursuing legal action to have it returned. Every last cent. The finality of it hangs in the room. Jessica's face, which had been a mask of heartbreak, now twists into one of pure, raw fury. She has nothing. Less than nothing. She is implicated in a crime. Eleanor finally seems to process what is happening. She looks from David's horrified face to my resolute one. Her perfect son. Her golden boy. A thief. A liar. A cruel, manipulative monster. Her entire world, the one she built around the myth of her perfect son, has just been utterly demolished. This can't be true, she whispers, her voice raspy. My son. My Mark. He wouldn't. Look at the proof, Eleanor, I say, my voice hard again. It's all there. This is who he really was. Not the man you pretended he was. This is the truth. Jessica finally snaps. She jumps up from her chair, her eyes blazing with hatred. You did this, she screams at me, her voice raw. You planned all of this. You witch. She lunges at me, her hands outstretched like claws. But David is faster. He moves between us, blocking her path. That's enough, Jessica, he says, his voice low and dangerous. Get out.
Now.
You can't do this to me, she wails, trying to push past him. He promised me. I have nothing. You have what you deserve, I say from behind David. You wanted my life. You wanted my husband. You wanted my home. And now you have exactly what he left for you. Nothing. David grabs her arm firmly. I said, get out, he repeats, his voice leaving no room for argument. He starts to escort her towards the front door. I'll sue you. I'll sue all of you, she screams, her voice echoing in the hall. You won't get away with this. David opens the door and practically pushes her out into the night. He closes the door on her final shriek of rage, and the house is suddenly, blessedly silent. The aftermath was quiet and heavy. The few remaining guests had slipped away during the climax, leaving only me, David, Eleanor, and Mr. Harrison in the wreckage of the living room. Eleanor sat motionless on the sofa, staring at the wall. She looked like a statue carved from grief and shame. She hadn't said a word since David had thrown Jessica out. Her denial had shattered, leaving a void. David walked back from the door, his shoulders slumped. He ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted and years older than he had just an hour before. He stopped in front of me, the stack of financial documents still clutched in his hand. Clara, he began, his voice rough with emotion. I don't know what to say.
I am so sorry.
It's not your fault, David, I said softly. You didn't know. But I should have, he insisted, his eyes filled with self-reproach. I saw the signs. The secrecy, the spending. I should have pushed harder. I should have protected the company. I should have protected you. He was your brother, I said. You wanted to believe the best of him. We all did. He shook his head, looking down at the papers. $5 million. He would have destroyed us. He would have let me go to jail for him. The realization seemed to hit him like a physical blow. All those years, I thought we were partners. I thought we were family.
He fooled everyone, I said.
That was his greatest talent. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, bringing us back to the present. David, the company will need to act quickly. We need to freeze the offshore accounts if we can. And we need to begin the process of reclaiming the funds that were illegally transferred, starting with the $50,000 given to Miss Miller. David nodded, his expression hardening into one of resolve. The grief was being replaced by a grim determination.
Yes.
Whatever it takes. I'll call our corporate lawyers first thing in the morning. We'll give them everything. He looked at me. Can we count on your cooperation, Clara? As the new majority shareholder in the company. The question hung in the air. For a moment, I could have chosen a different path. I could have washed my hands of the whole Collins family, taken my inheritance, and disappeared. But looking at David, at his genuine remorse and his determination to fix his brother's mess, I knew what I had to do. Yes, I said firmly. You have my full support. We'll fix this together. A look of immense relief washed over his face. Thank you, Clara. I mean it. After everything he did to you, you don't owe us anything. I'm not doing it for him, I said, my gaze flickering for a moment to Eleanor. I'm doing it for the family he almost destroyed. Eleanor flinched at my words, but still said nothing. She just continued to stare into the abyss of her own making. Mr. Harrison packed his briefcase. I will be in touch tomorrow to begin the formal probate process for the estate. It should be straightforward now. Clara, the house is legally yours. I'll have a locksmith come in the morning to change the locks as a precaution. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, I said, for everything. He gave me a small, respectful nod and saw himself out. The silence that descended was even heavier than before. It was just the three of us now, the broken remnants of a family. David finally turned to his mother. Mother, he said, his voice strained. Did you know? Did you know about Jessica? Eleanor didn't look at him. She just shook her head in a tiny, almost imperceptible motion. It was a lie, and we all knew it. She had known. She had encouraged it. She had stood by and watched, hoping for my downfall. "I think you should go, David," I said quietly, not wanting to witness this painful reckoning between mother and son. "We can talk more tomorrow." He looked at his mother, then back at me, his eyes full of a mixture of pity and anger.
Yes.
"You're right." He walked over to his mother and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, mother. I'll take you home." She finally moved, rising slowly from the sofa like an old woman.
She wouldn't look at me.
As David led her towards the door, she paused and her eyes met mine for a brief, searing moment. They were filled with a cold, bottomless hatred. It wasn't just grief for her son. It was fury at me, the person who had shattered her perfect illusion. She blamed me for the truth. In that moment, I knew there would be no apologies, no reconciliation. I had not just lost a husband, I had gained a lifelong enemy. Then they were gone. The door clicked shut and I was alone. The silence was absolute. The house, which had been filled with noise and people and tension just moments before, was now utterly still. I walked through the rooms, past the remnants of the party. The abandoned glasses, the wilting flowers, the plates of half-eaten food. It all felt like an archaeological site from a lost civilization. I finally allowed myself to sink onto the sofa, the same one Eleanor had just vacated. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I let the tears come. They weren't tears of grief for Mark. They were tears of relief, of exhaustion, of rage. I cried for the 5 years I had wasted. I cried for the young woman who had walked into this marriage full of hope. I cried for the sheer, monumental scale of the betrayal. After a long while, my tears subsided. I felt empty, but it was a clean kind of emptiness. A space had been cleared. I pulled out my phone and dialed Sarah. She answered immediately. "Clara? Oh my God, what happened? Is it over?" "It's over," I said, my voice hoarse. I told her everything. Every last dramatic detail. The lawyer's entrance, the reading of the will, the reveal of the other women, the embezzlement. I told her about Jessica's breakdown and Eleanor's silent fury. Sarah listened without interrupting, letting me pour it all out. When I was finished, there was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Wow," she finally breathed. Just,
"Wow.
You did it. You actually did it. You magnificent woman." Hearing her say it, hearing the awe in her voice, made it feel real. "I did, didn't I?" "You did more than that," Sarah said, her voice fierce. "You didn't just survive. You won. You took his sick, twisted game, and you turned it into your victory. He wanted to destroy you, and you ended up with everything. He is a footnote in your story now, Clara." Her words were a balm on my raw nerves.
Thank you, Sarah.
"I couldn't have done this without you." "You could have and you would have," she said. "But I'm glad I could be here. Now, what are you going to do?" I looked around the quiet, beautiful house. "My house. I'm going to get some sleep," I said. "And then tomorrow, I'm going to start my new life." The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal and financial activity. David and I, with Mr. Harrison's guidance, became a ruthlessly efficient team. We worked with the company lawyers to freeze the offshore accounts. We were successful in locking down almost $4 million before it could be moved. The remaining $1 million was lost, but it was a victory nonetheless. The company would survive. David was a changed man. The easygoing younger brother was gone, replaced by a focused and determined CEO. He worked tirelessly to repair the damage Mark had done, both financially and to the company's reputation. He was transparent with his employees and his clients, and in doing so, he earned their loyalty. He and I spoke every day. Our conversations were no longer about his brother. They were about balance sheets, business strategy, and the future. A strange, professional partnership bloomed in the ashes of our family tragedy. He treated me as an equal, valuing my opinion not just as a shareholder, but as a strategist. The legal action against Jessica proceeded quickly. Faced with undeniable proof that the money in her account was stolen, her bank froze the funds. Her lawyers made a few threatening noises about suing for defamation and emotional distress, but the threats were empty. When Mr. Harrison's office sent them copies of her emails with Mark, where they openly discussed my upcoming humiliation, they went silent. The $50,000 was returned to the company account within a month. I heard through the grapevine that she had to sell her car and move into a small apartment with 2 roommates. Her glamorous life, funded by my husband's lies, had evaporated overnight. Eleanor refused all contact. She did not come to the small, private burial service David and I arranged for Mark. She did not answer David's calls. She retreated into her own world of bitterness, a queen in a self-imposed exile. David told me she had been telling the few friends she had left that I was a manipulative gold digger who had driven her son to his death and then stolen his money. The lies were all she had left. They didn't hurt me. They were just the pathetic last gasps of a woman who could not face the truth. A few weeks after the party, I was sorting through the last of Mark's personal effects. I had packed up most of his clothes and belongings for donation, but I had left his office for last. As I was clearing out his desk drawers, I found a small, locked box at the very back. I broke it open. Inside, there was no hidden money or secret documents. There was just a collection of old photos and letters. They were from the first year of our relationship. Pictures of us laughing on a beach. A silly poem he had written for me. A ticket stub from our first movie date. I looked at the face of the young man in the photos. He was smiling, his eyes bright and full of life. There was a genuine warmth to him, an openness that had been completely absent in his final years.
I remembered that man.
I had loved that man, and a wave of real, profound grief washed over me. I finally understood. The man I had married didn't die in a car crash 2 weeks before our vow renewal. He had died long before that, piece by piece, as his ambition and his lies consumed him. The person who died in that accident was a stranger named Mark Collins, a thief and a cheat. My husband had been gone for years. I closed the box. I didn't need these memories anymore. They belonged to another life, another person. I took the box, along with the last of his things, and I put it out with the trash. My new life began to take shape. I redecorated the house, painting over the neutral colors Mark had insisted on with bright, bold shades that I loved. I turned his old office into my art studio, filling it with light and color. I took on new freelance projects, and with the financial security I now had, I could afford to be selective, choosing only the work that inspired me. One evening, about 6 months later, I was having dinner with David. We had started having weekly dinners, a way to check in on the business and on each other. Our friendship had become one of the most unexpected and welcome outcomes of the whole ordeal. "The final audit came back today," he said, swirling the wine in his glass. "We're officially in the clear. The company is stable. We're even projected to turn a profit next quarter." "That's amazing news, David," I said, a genuine smile on my face. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected me. He looked at me, his expression serious. "Clara, I know I've said it before, but thank you. You could have walked away. You could have sold your shares and left me to clean up the mess. But you stayed. You helped me save my family's legacy." "It's my legacy too now," I said. "And I'm proud of what we've built." He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. When I got home that night, I walked through my quiet, peaceful house. My home. I stood in my studio, looking at the half-finished canvas on the easel. My life felt like that canvas, once a mess of dark, tangled lines, now being slowly covered with bright, hopeful colors of my own choosing. I thought about Mark and his grand, cruel finale. He had wanted to be the hero of his own story, the man who broke free and started a new, glamorous life. He had planned a tragedy for me, a public shaming that would leave me with nothing. But his script had a fatal flaw. He never imagined a world without him in it. He never imagined that I would be the one to deliver the final lines. He wanted a grand finale for his drama. I just made sure he was the only one left on stage when the curtain fell. And in the silence that followed, I finally found my own voice. And I was just beginning to tell my own story.